Hello, this is Nick from Breaker Press Games, and today I want to talk about the known world. Alright, so today's topic actually is one of my favorite blurbs, one of the blurbs that made the biggest impact on me from the judges section of the Dungeon Crawl Classics rulebook. Before we get into it, though, I would like to talk about how you can support Breaker Press Games if you like this video. First and foremost, please like and subscribe. I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers by my 50th birthday, which is going to be 11 days from when this video drops. It's going to be a hard uphill battle, but I am determined to try. Additionally, if you like this t-shirt, you can pick one up from the Breaker Press web store. You can also pick up any of my zines and adventures from the Breaker Press web store. You can also get all of my stuff from the Goodman Games web store, including PDFs. You can get physical copies from the Exalted Funeral web store, Noble Knight Games, and then PDFs from DriveThruRPG and itch.io. Also, if you would like to support even further, you could become a Patreon member. I am trying to get to 50 patrons by my 50th birthday, and I'm just 2 away. And so, if you support on Patreon at $5 and above, you get cool stuff in the mail every month. The August reward was the Balladeer, and the September reward is called Outlying Farms. It's a pamphlet, a trifold pamphlet. If you support right now, I've got about 5 copies of the Balladeer, the blue version of the Balladeer left. And so if you become a member, you will get both the Balladeer and Outlying Farms as your reward for September. Okay, let's talk about the known world. Now, I'm going to pull up some information. Now, I think that this is so impactful, I am just going to read it verbatim. So, the world is larger than your characters will ever know. As they explore, remember these facts about medieval life. Almost all common folk live and die within a few miles of their birthplace. Overland travel is dangerous and expensive. Most peasants can afford only to walk. Cultural variation is measured in towns and valleys, not nations and continents. Most commoners are illiterate. Rare is the man who has traveled more than 20 miles from their home. There is no reliable long-range communication. And then the paragraph that wraps this up in a very, very tidy little bow. Make your world mysterious by making it small. Very small. What lies in the next valley? None can be sure. When a 5-mile journey becomes an adventure, you'll have succeeded in bringing life to your world. So, let's talk about all of that. I am going to pull this up and move this to my screen so that I have a memory of what's going on. So, when you are designing your own world, you want to take these things to heart. So, I think that a great blueprint for a good place to start to get that sense of smallness, look at some of the classic adventures like the Keep on the Borderlands, which Goodman Games did the fantastic Ore #1 version of the Keep on the Borderlands. But you can also just pick up the PDF of the Keep on the Borderlands on DriveThruRPG for cheap. Another option is the Village of Hamlet. When I created my setting of Stennard and I turned it into a publishable thing, my idea was to create my version of Hamlet. So let's break down things. So almost all common folk live and die within a few miles of their birthplace. That is just that idea of keeping things small. Overland travel is dangerous and expensive. Most peasants can afford only to walk. I choose, when I created Stennard, there is a stable, but I use a copper standard, which is different than what's in the rule book. I keep everybody very poor, dirt poor. So the idea of being able to buy a horse seems completely out of reach. Don't just throw them a bunch of horses. Make them earn them. So cultural variation is measured in towns, valleys, and not nations and continents. when I created my setting of Stennard, one of the things that I did was I created a town, and I set things up with the precipice of corruption, starting with this bridge behind me, was half a day's travel away, and then getting to the actual dungeon was another like a third of a day's travel away. And so that creates this sense that, you know, can we carry out this you know, unravel this mystery before it gets dark and we get back to Stennard, because the world is scary, it's treacherous, and especially when you're facing something like that, it feels extra treacherous, or at least that's the idea. That cultural variation is measured in towns and valleys. So after my players completed the precipice of corruption, one of my players wanted to become a ranger, and so I created my own version of the ranger class called the Outlier. This was one of my first classes that I created, and they wanted to go through like you know, becoming a ranger, like a training montage. And so then I sent them to Hillwood Camp. At the time it wasn't called Hillwood Camp, it was just the, you know, outlying areas where they could find a woodsman that could teach them you know, woodscraft. But the idea evolved into me creating Hillwood Camp and creating a separate town that had its own separate culture, traditions, and attitudes towards things. And so when you create your own towns, you want to do that. You want to think about what makes this town different from the neighboring town, because ultimately it should be very different. Most commoners are illiterate. I made sure to represent that in Stennard by the businesses have signs that have symbols on them. That's like a traditional medieval thing. And then rare is the person who has traveled more than 20 miles from their home. And so I deliberately placed, when I started to build out my world, Stennard is a day's travel from Hillwood Camp. If you want to get to Hastrel, it's 2 days travel. And if you want to get to Illis, it is 3 days travel. And I made sure that each of these places has their own vibe. Hastrel is run by the guild lords, and it has its own, you know, it's a, you know, a very like trade specific place, but also, you know, where you're going to encounter dens of thieves and that sort of thing. And then Illis is where the noble folk live, and it's got its own traditions and mores and what have you. And so this is how you build out your world. You want to make sure that each of these places has its distinct qualities. And yeah, you know, the part of why this resonated with me is a lot of the things that they talk about in the DCC rulebook, like the dice chain video here, and the known world and things like that. There was this idea of recapturing the wonder of when you first discovered role-playing games. And I know for me, I first played D&D, Moldvay Basic, at 8 years old. You know, I would have been in 3rd grade, and we played just a brief encounter from the Keep on the Borderlands, and the world in the Keep on the Borderlands is so small. It was before I knew anything about, you know, the world of Greyhawk or what became the Forgotten Realms or any of these things. The whole world that I experienced in those first few sessions was just the Caves of Chaos and the Keep on the Borderlands. And that, my friends, is how you keep things small and wondrous. The other thing, and this is going to be a whole separate video, but the idea of keeping your monsters and magic mysterious. I talk more about that in my video on the 10 Tenets of Grimdark Play, which I will link right here. If you like, you know, this known world idea, you should definitely check out my video on the 10 Tenets of Grimdark Play. Thank you for supporting indie games and indie game designers. Oh! I got ahead of myself. If you like this sort of stuff and you want another example of how you can keep your world small, you should check out my video on the Stennard Courier Volume 1, which is my town setting. There is going to be the sequel coming very soon. and it is called the Stennard Courier Volume 2. It expands the town, gets a little more into the mysteries and additional NPCs and things like that that are a part of this town. I'm very proud of what I am doing with Stennard, so check it out. The link to the Kickstarter preview page will be in the description below. So yeah, that is what I've got for you today. I am Nick from Breaker Press Games. You have a fantastic weekend, and as I was saying before, thank you for supporting indie games and indie game designers. Take care.